Ever since the 1960s, psychologists have known that there are two different ways you can motivate yourself to get out of bed in the morning. The first are called intrinsic values. They are the things you do purely because you value them in and of themselves, not because of anything you get out of them. When a kid plays, they are acting totally on intrinsic motives. They are doing it because it gives them joy. These intrinsic motivations persist all through our lives, long after childhood ends. At the same time, there is a rival set of values, which are called extrinsic motives. They're the things you do not because you actually want to do them, but because you'll get something in return, whether it's money or admiration or sex or superior status. Like people who hate their jobs but need to be able to pay the rent. Imagine you play the piano. If you play it for yourself because you love it, then you are being driven to do it by intrinsic values. If you play in a dive bar you hate just to make enough money to ensure you don't get thrown out of your apartment, then you are being driven to do it by extrinsic values. These rival set of values exist in all of us. Nobody is driven totally by one thing or the other. So, the question is, does achieving extrinsic goals make you happy? And how does that compare to achieving intrinsic goals? The results were quite startling. People who achieved their extrinsic goals didn't experience any increase in day-to-day happiness. None. They spent a huge amount of energy chasing these goals, but when they fulfilled them, they felt the same as they had at the start. Your promotion, your fancy car, the new iPhone, the expensive necklace, they won't improve your happiness even 1 inch. But people who achieved their intrinsic goals did become significantly happier and less depressed and anxious. You could track the movement. As they worked at it and felt, they become, for example, a better friend. Not because they wanted anything out of it, but because they felt it was a good thing to do. They became more satisfied with life, being a better dad, dancing for the joy of it, helping another person, just because it's the right thing to do. They do significantly boost your happiness. Yet most of us, most of the time, spend our time chasing extrinsic goals, the very thing that will give us nothing. Our whole culture is set up to get us to think this way. Get the right grades, the best paying job, rise through the ranks, display your earnings through clothes and cars. That's how to make yourself feel good. It has been discovered is that the message our culture is telling us about how to have a decent and satisfying life virtually all the time is not true. The more this was studied, the clearer it became. 22 different studies have, in recent years, found that the more materialistic and extrinsically motivated you become, the more depressed you will be. 12 different studies found that the more materialistic and extrinsically motivated you become, the more anxious you will be. Similar studies have now been carried out in Britain, Denmark, Germany, India, South Korea, Russia, Romania, Australia, and Canada, and the results all over the world keep coming back the same. Just as we have shifted en masse from eating food to eating junk food, we've discovered in effect that we have shifted from having meaningful values to having junk values. All this mass-produced fried chicken looks like food and it appeals to the part of us that evolved to need food, yet it doesn't give us what we need from food. Nutrition. Instead, it fills us with toxins. In the same way, all these materialistic values telling us to spend our way to happiness look like real values. They appeal to the part of us that has evolved to need some basic principles to guide us through life. Yet they don't give us what we need from values, a path to a satisfying life. Instead, they fill us with psychological toxins. Junk food is distorting our bodies. Junk values are distorting our minds. We are now able to identify at least 4 key reasons why junk values are making us feel bad. The first is that thinking extrinsically poisons your relationship with other people. A study was conducted on 200 people in depth. They found that the more materialistic you become, the shorter your relationships will be, and the worse their quality will be. If you value people for how they look or how they impress other people, it's easy to see that you'll be happy to dump them if someone hotter or more impressive comes along. And at the same time, if all you're interested in is the surface of another person, it's easy to see why you'll be less rewarding to be around, and they'll be more likely to dump you too. You will have fewer friends and connections, and they won't last as long. The second finding relates to another change that happens as you become more driven by junk values. There is strong scientific evidence that we all get most pleasures from what we call flow states. Moments when we simply lose ourselves doing something we love and are carried along in the moment. They're proof we can maintain the pure intrinsic motivation that a child feels when she is playing. But materialistic people experience significantly fewer flow states than the rest of us. Why would that be? Imagine if you play the piano every day. You keep thinking to yourself, am I the best piano player? Are people going to applaud this performance? Am I going to get paid for this? How much? Suddenly, you will lose all joy. Instead, your ego is going to be aggravated instead of dissolving. That is what your head starts to look like when you become more materialistic. If you are doing something not for itself but to achieve an effect, you can't relax into the pleasure of a moment. You are constantly monitoring yourself. Your ego will shriek like an alarm you can't shut off. This leads to a third reason why junk values make you feel so bad. When you are extremely materialistic, you've always kind of got to be wondering about yourself. How are people judging you? It forces you to focus on other people's opinions of you and their praise of you. And then you're kind of locked into having to worry what other people think of you and if other people are going to give you those rewards that you want. And that's a heavy load to bear. Instead of walking around doing what it is you're interested in doing or being around people who love you just for who you are. If your self-esteem, your sense of self-worth is contingent upon how much money you've got or what your clothes are like or how big your house is, you are forced into constant external comparisons. There is always somebody who's got a nicer house or better clothes or more money. Even if you're the richest person in the world, how long will that last? Materialism leaves you constantly vulnerable to a world beyond your control. And then there is a crucial fourth reason. It's worth pausing on this one, because I think it's the most important. All of us have certain innate needs. To feel connected, to feel valued, to feel secure, to feel we make a difference in the world, to have autonomy, to feel we're good at something. Materialistic people are less happy because they are chasing a way of life that does a bad job of meeting these needs. What you really need are connections, but what you are told you need in our culture is stuff and superior status. And in the gap between those two signals, from yourself and from society, depression and anxiety will grow as your real needs go unmet. You have to picture all the values that guide why you do things in your life. Each value you have is like a slice of a pie. So you've got your spiritual slice, and your family slice, and your money slice, and your hedonism slice. We've all got all the slices. When you become obsessed with materialism and status, that slice gets bigger, and the bigger one slice gets, the smaller other slices have to get. So if you become fixated on getting stuff and the superior status, the parts of the pie that care about tending to your relationships or finding meaning or making the world better have to shrink to make way. And the pressure in our culture runs overwhelmingly one way. Spend more, work more. We live under a system that constantly distracts us from what's really good about life. We are being propagandized to live in a way that doesn't meet our basic psychological needs. So what we are left with a permanent, puzzling sense of dissatisfaction.